Win streaks, trade chatter, teams abuzz, big scraps. There's no shortage of news and action coming out of the NHL right now, and that's why you're tapped in to your source for fantasy hockey news and daily degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers and much love to everyone out there making us your first listen every single day. We appreciate all that love and support so much. It's just your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, on today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. My friends, welcome back. I am hyped up, fired up on a Monday. This NHL past weekend was just so entertaining, and I know that sounds like a cop-out, but from big fights, awesome tilts, these matchups in what am I trying to say here? Boy, I'm butchering this off the jump. All these races in the NHL. Here we go, people. This is why I need Steele with me. I'm doing it solo today. Much love. But these races in every division are tightening, and it's making for some real intense action on the ice. And that's why on today's episode, I'm going to break down a little bit of everything from over the weekend, including all of the top news and injury updates that are affecting your squad. Tkachuk, Arvidsson, Konecny, Seguin, opportunities for young players, waiver-wire targets for this upcoming week, and of course, Monday's bets. I got a little same-game parlay for the head tops. It's been a big weekend for your boy. Back-to-back big nights. I'm trying to keep this money rolling. So let's get right into it, though, because this past weekend, I alluded to it. Obviously, lots of trade rumors circulating around, the same ones that we've heard over the last number of weeks. I'm not going to get too much into it other than just saying this. Over these next few days as a fantasy hockey GM, you got to have your finger on the pulse. You've heard this from me before, but if a trade pops or a deal goes down that affects teams, not just one or two, but perhaps multiple, or multiple trades go down, this is going to have immediate impact and effect on your ability to build a winner. And actually, if you're a team maybe on the outside looking in right now, getting the move to a different squad, a player who is slacking perhaps, or a player just underperforming, could really be a huge boost for you down the stretch. Similar to what the LA Kings were looking for from Viktor Arvidsson, a little midseason boost, one in which that they didn't have to go out there and acquire anyone. This guy comes back, plays 2 games. He was pretty effective. I believe he comes back and has a couple of points coming back from that back injury. He only plays 4 games, and now he is back on long-term IR. So this is the first bit of injury news that I wanted to get into, because now he misses, I believe, at least 10 games being on LTIR. So once again, fantasy GMs are going to have to juggle, because this was a very effective offensive piece. 46 goals and 62 assists in 143 games over 2021 to 2023. A really good second or third line along with Philip Deneau and Trevor Moore. We've talked all about that. So here's the main takeaway. Aside from you're going to probably, I don't see you putting him on an IR spot. The fantasy playoffs are so close, so this is number one. I'm saying drop this bad boy, because there's probably another IR spot that you're waiting for someone to return from. I don't know. Hit me in the comments and let me know. But I'm saying Viktor Arvidsson, if he's done at least another 10 games, we don't know what the recovery is going to be like. I'm going to say drop him depending on your format. Deeper formats, you're hanging on to him because maybe he has that nice bump once the playoffs start. But we don't know when he's going to be back. This is another major injury to a player who has suffered many. So Viktor Arvidsson's first off the top. Plus, the Kings now have $3.3 million in cap space. This is going to make Rob Blake's job at the deadline a little bit more difficult, because we knew they were interested in a goalie. We're going to talk a little bit about one of them, in Marc-Andre Fleury, perhaps, at the waiver wire segment right after the break. But they're going to have to get creative now and perhaps replacing a piece in their peripheral forward group. Viktor Arvidsson was going to be an important little cog in their wheel for the postseason push. This LA Kings team is playing a lot better of late. 7-2-1 in their last 10. This obviously hurts. Let me move on to another, nice little injury segment there. Segue. Here we go. Matthew Tkachuk. This is the biggest news of the weekend in terms of injuries. all fantasy GMs out there who own Matthew Tkachuk have their fingers crossed, because this guy is just an absolute beast. And he started slow this year, and he still has 65 points in 57 games, 200 shots on net, 60 penalty minutes. And we know he loves to also throw his weight around. 93 hits already this season. He is a fantasy hockey dynamo, and one that I've come on here many times before and said, if you can get even one or two Matthew Tkachuk-like players, maybe a Vincent Trocheck in there or his brother Brady, and you have a couple of these guys who bring an elite offensive talent and fill out the peripherals, those are the teams, when you look up at the standings every year, that team most likely has at least a few of these types of players. So Matthew Tkachuk, he doesn't play Saturday. He takes a hit from Andrei Svechnikov along the boards in the first period, I believe against the Carolina Hurricanes. When was that? Their loss on Thursday. He played a couple more shifts and did not return after the period. So this is obviously a concern both for the Florida Panthers, who have dodged a few injury concerns over the past couple of days, but for fantasy GMs out there because of how good he has been. I'm going to mention a number of topics right around the targets right around the break for Waiver-Wire. See, I'm picking up steam now, my friends. I do miss Steele. That's why I need him back. He's on a little West Coast hiatus, but he will be back on Wednesday's episode. Tomorrow, I'm going to cover a little bit more of what's popping in the NHL, so make sure you're tapped in. We got a couple of special guests coming up next week as well. This is a 30-minute show, my friends. We try and fit in all of the news, betting angles, and fantasy fanatics that you need in 30 minutes. That's why I'm going to get to a little bit more right after the break, talking about Travis Konecny, Tyler Seguin, Logan Stankoven's opportunity with the Dallas Stars, and, of course, Monday's same game parlay. You're not getting out of here with a couple of bets from your boy, because I am cooking a 5-1 Saturday afternoon, trying to put some money back in the pocketbooks after what's been a pretty rough start. Anyhow, you heard all about it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends, and we love this app, Steele and I absolutely love in Sleeper. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. It's almost the halfway point in the NHL season, and all of the hockey fans, fantasy fanatics, and gamblers out there need to make sure you're tapping into the Sleeper app. Regardless of where your team sits in the current standings, we need to remind you could be winning big on daily fantasy on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon will record more or less in their Sleeper predictions for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. My friends, thank you so much for joining us. This is one of those episodes that at this time of the year, I just got to get fired up, because I'm going to get to Waiver-Wire in a second, but you have to absolutely nail your lineup optimization right now. It's something I've been struggling with over the last couple of weeks. You even miss one day. You get too busy with work. The family pops up. This is what happens. Life happens, and you invest a lot of time into your team and to making it good. And that's why you have to make sure every single opportunity is primed for you to get this loot. Anyhow, I'm going to continue to break it down, because you need to know what's going on out there. Travis Konecny, day to day. He hurt himself in practice. I read that he hurt himself on a drive to the net, came up holding his side. I'm not going to speculate on anything other than Travis Konecny is another fantasy beast this season. And if he is even out a game or two, his production is going to be hard to replace. 27 goals, 27 assists. He has 5 goals and 7 assists during a 7-game point streak prior to getting hurt and not playing on Saturday. So Travis Konecny needs to be on your radar in terms of what do you do with him. I think he's going to be back near the end of the week. That's what it sounds like. That's what it looks like. But we don't know. It's Monday. All of these news pieces that I'm talking about haven't had any updates yet since over the weekend. And that's why usually Monday after that morning skate, after practice, you'll hear coaches, you'll hear medical staff getting the updates. And that's when we'll hear even more. But for now, this is the latest. And that's why I got it covered for y'all, because also I believe Tyson Forster got hurt as well over the weekend. He had just returned. So there are going to be some holes in the Philly lineup that are going to need to be juggled. Travis Konecny on a day-to-day basis, for sure, one of them. This is also a club that has really, I think, played, I'm going to say overachieved, but they are a team on the come up, and you can't ignore those fantasy pieces that are on the come up along with them. So Travis Konecny had to be mentioned. This is going to be a perfect segue into what I do for Waiver-Wire, because this Logan Stankoven kid, Stankoven, I'm going to go with Stankoven because I think Stankoven, anyway, his opportunity right now with Tyler Seguin on the shelf. Tyler Seguin, we don't know how long this is going to be. Once again, see my previous point. Tyler Seguin goes down with a lower body ailment, opens up the door for a young kid who has just produced at every single level, blows the doors off the WAHL. I believe he's been putting up really solid numbers in the A this year as well for Dallas's affiliate. He is going to, by the way, happy birthday to Logan Stankoven, who is 21 years old today. Good Kamloops Blazer, good Kamloops British Columbia boy. I'm going to get to the point right now because he is playing on a really good line with a young player that I love in Wyatt Johnston and another savvy veteran in Jamie Benn. So this young kid in Stankoven comes in with all the opportunity to show that he can continue to produce at the next level, which is obviously when he only now has one game under his belt. But on Saturday, 15 minutes in ice time. I believe he almost had 4 minutes on the power play. He's getting a look, 3 shots on net. To me, this is one of those little intriguing spots that with Tyler Seguin out, and this is right into this segue into Waiver-Wire, because Stankoven is number 1 on my list this week, just to have a look, just to have a peek, because we really don't know what his deployment is going to be. The Dallas Stars, however, play 4 times this week: Isles, Avs, Jets, and Sharks, so a little mixed bag of everything. But when I'm looking at the Isles, Avs, and Sharks, those are 3 teams that have been getting pumped lately. The Jets exactly haven't been playing great. So if he's in there on a nice little line, insulated with a veteran and a good young player who has a little bit more experience under his belt, I think this is the perfect line for him to fit in on. And let's see what he can do, because already in one game, he's going to get a little bit of a run out. Owned at 1% on ESPN, 3 on Yahoo, so he's out there in most of those leagues. Fantrax, 37%. We know the Fantrax leagues tend to have a little bit more of an intense percentage on ownership, but have a look at this kid. I'm loving the line. I'm loving the week. 4 games, Stankoven. Have a look. Number 2, Chandler Stevenson. We know that Mark Stone is out. That usually hurts value in the top 6, and there's something to be said about Chandler Stevenson's inability to really string together a consistent season. 34 points in 54 games, not good, not great. However, over his last 3 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, the minutes are up. He is actually getting more shots on net, 4 shots last game. I'd like to see him shoot the puck more, and I think with this increase in responsibility and in ice time, he deserves a little bit of a look. Maybe this is a deeper play, but I think Chandler Stevenson and what I've seen from him since Mark Stone has been out of the lineup really intrigues me. 46% on ESPN, 61 on Fantrax, and 21 on Yahoo. He's out there. Also, the Golden Knights play 4 games this week. Actually, I think they play 3. I think that's a typo on my part. Leafs, Bruins, and Sabres. Again, a mixed bag, but I'm liking Chandler Stevenson for that nice little bump of offensive depth. He's getting that uptick in ice time. These are the things that you just take a shot on. Am I saying you keep him past the week? Am I saying you keep him past a couple of games? Add him for the Leafs. See what the Knights do in response to getting basted by the Leafs only just last week. Could be a good little bounce back. Bruins are struggling. Sabres allow a lot of goals. Maybe not a terrible week to be taking a look at Chandler Stevenson. Very quickly, before I get to one more target, and we'll come back around the break, I got a couple of other angles, Waiver-Wire, to talk about. And then, of course, Monday's same game parlay. I'll get it all going for y'all because we're keeping today short and tight. But first, I got to give some love to that Locked On 24/7 streaming service. They're doing special things out there. It's available on Amazon Fire TV, on all the TV channel apps. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. You got to be checking it out. It's fire, no pun intended. However, today's episode is also brought to you by Camino Consulting. You got to be checking out Camino Consulting. It's one of our new favorite sponsors, and I'll tell you all about it right now. Camino Consulting, our sponsor today. You've heard our families online and couples course taking advantage of the Locked On 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about the live seminars in both sport and business? The challenge in differentiating candidates and recruits is an endless battle. everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it's the intangibles that matter the most when things are similar. Contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective you've ever seen, both because you've identified the right candidates and because you've learned how to communicate and motivate them in accord with their own preferences. You're in business management or working with a team, we pay for referrals. Make money by making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works better together at the end of the year, better than one weekend. So contact Camino Consulting at CaminoConsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. That's Camino Consulting. Giddy up, my friends. Big time Monday episode just with your boy Solo holding it down. Hope you've been feeling it. Hope I've been covering all the angles that you've been digging into, ones that are affecting your squad this week. This is going to be a big week for us. I can feel it. Let's keep going here because I've got another name, two more names. Gabe Valard. The Winnipeg Jets have been up and down, mostly down of late and struggling to score goals. Not Gabriel Valard, however. He's been putting up points over his last number of games. 5 goals. 6 assists in his last 5. This is where we have to start to pay attention because as much as the Winnipeg Jets have been struggling overall, like I said, to kind of get it going in the offensive end, I'm really liking Valard on that top line with Scheifele and Connor. He's on the top line of a team that up until a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, was right there in the mix as a Stanley Cup threat. And with Connor Hellebuck in the cage, this team is more than good enough to go on another run. They're still there at the top of the Central. They're still very much lurking around for a top 3 spot. And that means this team is going to continue to get wins and produce. So I think Gabriel Valard right now, my goodness me, you have to take a look. 53% on ESPN, 73% on Fantrax, and 47% on Yahoo. How about this, my friends? The Jets play 4 games this week. Blues, Sabres, Stars and Canes. I know the Stars and Canes, again, a bit of a mixed bag all across the board, but I'm going to take my shot with Gabe Valard this week, most definitely. If you're in need of a winger, if you're in need of some offensive punch, Gabe Valard and Chandler Stevenson, along with the rookie and Logan Stankoven, I think are the 3 that I'm really liking this week the most. But I'm not done. I got the back end covered for y'all too. You know, I'm going to get to my same game parlay in a few minutes around the break. But sorry, we're already back from break, but anyhow, see, I do miss Steele. Noah Hanifin, his trade stock is going through the roof. Just set a career high in goals over the weekend. What was that number? 11 this season. I don't want to say he's playing his way out of Calgary because the Calgary Flames are playing very good hockey. They just lay a 6-piece beating on their interprovincial rivals, the Edmonton Oilers, on Saturday. Not to rub that one into the Edmonton Oilers fan base at all. That was a big win for the Calgary Flames for a number of reasons. Nazem Kadri is cooking, and Noah Hanifin might be playing his way out of Calgary if the Calgary Flames end up sputtering a little bit here, which is hard to predict given how good they're playing. Jacob Markstrom as well, cooking in the cage, but you can't help but feel, given how well Markstrom has played, how well Noah Hanifin has played, especially over the last 7 to 10 days, there are going to be a number of GMs circling the waters there and hitting up Craig Conroy on the regular to see what it's going to take to pry them out of Calgary. Number one, that price just went up huge. And number two, he might not even be taking many calls because of how close they are to making a playoff spot. Because once you crack that playoff, anything can happen. Anyway, Noah Hanifin, big weekend, 83% ESPN, 76 on Fantrax. But here's where the interesting tidbit comes in. 58% on Yahoo. 59. So he might be out there given your league format. I know most of them he's probably not. I just got to come out here and mention it. It was also kind of in the vein of, let's say this player does get moved, and maybe you took a shot on acquiring him now while, number one, he's still hot, and it's a good look. It's going to cost you something, but hey, I don't know your setup. Hit me in the comments. Hit me in the DMs. Let me help. Anyhow, Noah Hanifin, if he goes to a winner and he's already playing good, I'm just going to say this now. You'll probably be really happy that you went out and acquired Noah Hanifin before his price went even higher. The Calgary Flames only play 2 games this upcoming week, but then they play 4 the following. So this is maybe a bit of a deeper play, and maybe it lines up better for adding him next week. But you know those numbers are going to continue to go up, especially when you got him on Sportsnet. They had a whole segment, a little graphic with his head on a trade value going up. Anyhow, the Minnesota Wild are playing really good hockey right now. And the names swirling around out there, we know all about Marc-Andre Fleury. But how about the Wild play 4 times this weekend, a back-to-back over the weekend against the Blues and the Sharks? So we have to pay attention to these spots because if you're needing a spot start or you have Fleury as a third goaltender. Pay attention to the schedule over the weekend, because the way that they're playing right now, no disrespect to the Blues, who have been obviously a lot better than the Sharks, sniffing around for a spot themselves, this is a really, really, really good spot for the Minnesota Wild to get a win. And if you're in need of a win yourself, bang, had to highlight it, because here's the second goalie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, UPL. I believe the Buffalo Sabres have, they do. They have 3 straight wins. He's got a save percentage well north of .935 in all 3 of those games. This season, obviously, the Sabres have been up and down, but I'd say UPL with a .913 save percentage and 2.5 goals against is a big reason why they are even where they are, because we know Devin Levi hasn't been there this season, maybe next year, but UPL now and in the foreseeable future is the goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres. And we know in these kinds of setups that I've talked about this at length with goaltenders. I don't have his ownership up here because I'm slacking a little bit, but UPL over the next couple of days, as he continues to perform, as the Sabres are playing pretty good hockey. I know that was Columbus and Montreal, 2 of those wins, but one of them was the Carolina Hurricanes, and it was a good performance from him, 32 saves. So let me just get that one out, because that is my last waiver wire target of the week. UPL and Marc-Andre Fleury, obviously on a bit of a different level than the rest of my forwards, but still important. Monday, 4-game betting board. Shout out to everyone out there holding us down Monday through Friday. Like I said, we try and hit you with everything you need in a 30-minute show, Monday through Friday. And Monday, 4-game NHL betting board. When I looked at this 4 games, I won't lie, it's a tricky one. And as I continue to bring up my stats here, I'll just say this. Over the next, 2 weeks, while teams do juggle lineups and make trades, betting and handicapping can be very tricky. So what I would say is dial your bets back a little bit, and let's wait as it gets a little bit closer to playoff season and have a little bit more bankroll. However, the New York Islanders roll into the Dallas Stars, not playing hockey the way that they need to be to win games. Patrick Waugh's initial boost in confidence has phased out hard over the last 6 games. 1-5 for these Islanders, and they only have 2 wins in their last 9 games away from Long Island. I don't think all of those are Patrick Waugh's tenure, but the fact remains that this team is struggling to score goals, and Ilya Sorokin is not the Ilya Sorokin that we have seen over his whole career. And that is obviously, this team hangs its hat in the defensive end and playing stingy hockey, and that comes from its blue paint outwards. So they have to turn it around in a big, big way if they want to still consider themselves a wild card team. Anyhow, I'm going to finish this off nicely with a bow here for big time bets. Same game parlay for this Dallas Stars New York Islanders game, and you know where I'm headed. The Dallas Stars head-to-head have points in 8 of the last 10 against the New York Islanders, including 6 wins. They are also a good home team, and one in which I'm just behind. You've heard it from me a ton. They aren't playing well either. 1-4 in their last 5 games, and I think this is the perfect spot for them to turn it around. Initially, I wanted to hammer the Stars on the puck line, but because this is a same-game parlay and I'm liking my odds anyway, I'm going to just ride with Stars on the money line. I'm going to ride with the under 6.5 because I think both teams wake up in this one, and both teams are defensively stingy. We know this. It's a fact. Jake Ottinger hasn't played well. Scott Wedgwood has been the better goaltender this year, which is a little bit hilarious, but I'm going to the under 6.5. It's a bit of an even split head-to-head. The last 10 games, 5 over, 5 under between these two. And if I had to have a lock of the night, which I don't because it is a same-game parlay and I need all 3 to hit, I'd be looking at Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen, since returning from injury, this is just one of those prototypical D-men that you build a franchise around. 37 points this season. He has points in at least his last 5 straight, 2 goals, 4 assists in his last 5. I don't know what it has before that, but at least a 5-game point streak for Miro Heiskanen, throwing the body around a little bit up until the last 2 games where he had no shots on net. He was throwing the puck on net. His ice time is up over 26 minutes a night, 24 minutes, 23 minutes a night. I love Miro Heiskanen as a player, and if I had to just bet one, and it would be a lock, it would be Miro Heiskanen anytime point. But let's parlay them all together. Same game parlay styles, baby. Miro Heiskanen, anytime point. Dallas Stars on the money line, and hit me with the under 6.5 because that is just what's going to happen in this one, my friends. Shout out for holding me down for the Monday episode of your source for daily fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Make sure you're out there checking out the first ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now also on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. Make sure you're tapped in. Thank you for being tapped into today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow for another jam-packed Tuesday show.